Wife finds her husband's hidden stash of receipts from secret dates has been on for months, and I'm not going to pretend I handled it coolly because I didn't. Hi, I'm Lila, I'm 32. I'm a barista who can pull a shot with my eyes half closed and make small talk with anyone from a tradesman at 6 a.m. to a novelist at noon, but apparently the one person I couldn't read was the man I married. It started on laundry day because betrayal never chooses a cinematic hour. It chooses the exact moment you've got one sock in your bra strap and the dryer's making a sound like a trapped bee. We keep a showbox of important house things on the top shelf of the whole closet: old passports, spare keys, a Polaroid of our first horrible rental, and I was up on a chair reaching for it, the way you reach for the last jar in a supermarket aisle, when I noticed there were two showboxes. One was the normal shabby Nike box with the duct tape corner. The other was a pristine black box that did not match anything we own, like a stranger smiling too wide in a family photo. The lid wasn't taped, which felt like permission disguised as oversight. Inside were folded slips of paper like pale birds. Receipts. A small fat nest of them. The top one said, "The Oyster Room, 2 martinis, oysters by the half-dozen, lemon tart." I don't remember deciding to sit down. I just remember that suddenly my legs were arranged beneath me on the hallway runner and my hands were holding proof. The date, 2 months ago on a Tuesday. I was working the evening shift that night. We'd joked that I reeked of espresso like a cologne for people who hate sleep. He'd said he was getting ramen with Dan. I looked through them like a sommelier sniffing cork. There were cinema tickets to an art house place we never go together because he says the seats hurt his back. There were receipts for flowers, not from the florist near us but from one across the river. There was a modest little thing from a novelty bookstore with the title scrawled in the margin, "A Manual for Heartbreakers." I almost laughed. If this were fiction, I would roll my eyes at that on-the-nose prop. Life didn't care about my taste. You know when a latte looks perfect and then you bump the counter and the Rosetta shivers into a mistake you can't fix? That was my body. A pattern bumped. I did inventory of myself like I do of the cafe's fridge. Am I shaking? A little. Am I breathing? Enough. Do I need sugar? Maybe. The second receipt I read had the time stamped 4:52 p.m. on a Friday. He'd texted me at 5:01 p.m. saying late at the office, grab dinner without me. I pictured him saying it while signing the credit card slip, and I wanted to throw the box down the stairs and listen to it confess all the way to the bottom. I didn't. I put the lid back on like I could hold the universe shut with cardboard. Then I went to work because people still needed cappuccinos and because rage does not excuse rent. All day I watched hands. You notice hands when you steam milk. You see the way couples reach for each other without looking, the little tap of a knuckle on a wrist that says, "I'm here." You see the solo regulars who keep their phones face down and the ones who hold their mugs like lifebuoys. I wondered about my hands. Did they look married? Did they look like a woman who had just read 2 martinis at 4 in the afternoon? I didn't tell anyone for 24 hours because you can't tell a thing like this. Then I told my best friend Nyla after closing. I wiped a counter that didn't need wiping and said very softly, "I found a box of receipts." She didn't say, "Maybe they're for work." She didn't say, "I'm sure there's an explanation." She said, "Okay," like a paramedic. "Do you want the gentle plan or the feral plan?" "The gentle plan is I ask and he tells me a curated truth and I choose what to believe," I said. "The feral plan is I become a crow with a spreadsheet." "Crows are smart," she said. "And spreadsheets respect the dead." That night I lay beside him feeling like two people. The woman who knew the shape of his shoulder in the dark and the woman who wanted to turn on the light and hold a receipt up to his sleeping mouth like an X-ray. He kissed my neck in the morning and I thought of oysters and lemon tart. He asked if I could pick up dry cleaning later, and I thought of the florist across the river. I went out to the balcony and looked at the skyline like it might testify. It didn't. I didn't confront him that day. I did what you do when you hear a noise downstairs. I listened. I made a list of the dates on my phone and lined them up with text messages he sent those evenings. They paired too neatly like a dinner service laid for two. I cross-checked our bank statement. Some were cash, some were a card I didn't recognize. The name on the charge was a bank we don't use. A new credit card. Probably in his name only. The little island where secrets flourish. I went back to the showbox. Beneath the stack was a folded piece of thick paper, letterpress heavy, the sort of paper you buy when you want to make your words wear a tuxedo. Inside, a handwritten note, "Thank you for making Tuesday make sense again. E." It smelled faintly of a perfume with the word noir in the name. Tuesday, the day of the oyster martinis. That narrowed it down to every elegant name you can imagine. Eva, Elise, Eleanor, Eden, Ella. The alphabet is not our friend. Even in the middle of that nausea, another thought like a practical mother, evidence spoils in the heat of the moment. Photograph everything. I did. My hands were steady like they are when I pour swans instead of hearts in milk. Swan necks require confidence I usually reserve for latte art competitions and signing for deliveries, but there I was, documenting my own life with the clarity you hope to reserve for taxes. My mother always says, you don't really know your line until you look at it from the wrong side. I'd thought my line was infidelity, obvious and bright. But here it was, paperwork and perfume and a neat initial, and I was standing on the wrong side realizing my line was actually contempt. Not the sex, not even the companionship. It was the contempt of building a filing system for it in our house, the ease of it, the administrative nature of his betrayals. He was not swept up, he was organized. I finally asked a question 2 nights later when we were brushing our teeth because marriage is often logistics with interludes of emotion. Mouth full of foam, I asked, "Who is he?" He spat, blinked at the mirror like it might prompt him, and said, "E." Then in the tone of a man who is proud of solving a crossword clue, "Ethan at work, finance." Not E. Nathan. E. letter E. For the handwritten note that says Tuesday makes sense. He froze the way people freeze when the camera catches them mid-chew. "What is this?" he said, which is the favorite sentence of guilty people everywhere. "It's a question." "What note?" "The one in the black showbox on the top shelf." He made a mistake then, 3 actually. 1, he went silent for too long. 2, he stared at the door like he wanted to run upstairs and move the showbox to another dimension. 3, he said, "You went through my things." Not, "What are you talking about?" Not, "That's nothing." Not, "That's from a client." He put the onus on my method, not his content. I felt my spine go from damp paper to rod. "I put your socks away," I said. "My crime is efficiency." He scrubbed his face with his towel, buying time. It's complicated," he tried. "That's what people say when the truth is simple and ugly." He sat on the edge of the bath and deflated, a man-shaped balloon giving up its air. "Her name is Elise," he said so quietly that for a second I pretended I hadn't heard. But I had. The initial had a body. We met at a conference in March. She lives here. It was coffee. Then not coffee. "Is it still coffee?" I asked, and I swear I could hear my heartbeat set a metronome for the room. He nodded into his hands. "It's been a while." He didn't try to dress it up with adjectives like complicated or unexpected. For a second I respected him for that, and then I remembered the letterpress card and disrespected him again. "I need you to go stay somewhere else tonight," I said, because my therapist from 2 years ago would be proud that I used a clear request instead of a hurricane. "The guest room isn't far enough." "An actual somewhere else." He looked up, panic flaring, logistics, not love. "Where will I?" "The Merit, perhaps," I said, dry as a desert. "You seem to know the scene." He opened his mouth, closed it. "Okay," he said, and it sounded like the first true thing he'd said in months. After he left, I called Nyla and said, "I did the gentle plan and I'm going to do the feral plan." She arrived with dumplings and a spiral notebook like a midwife arriving with towels. "Let's make lists," she said. "We can't sort feelings, but we can sort facts." We counted receipts like archaeologists, we mapped them onto a calendar and gave each one a sticky note tab like a toe tag. We learned their rhythm, Tuesdays and Fridays, sometimes a Sunday late lunch, never a Monday because that's when he plays basketball with his cousin, a ritual he would not betray. 2 to 3 times a week for almost 5 months. The novelty bookstore was in May. The last receipt was last Thursday. The flowers were bi-weekly, which made my mouth twist. What is the half-life of a bouquet that says I'm here and also somewhere else? I drafted a message to him. I need access to your new card and I need a timeline written by you, not your fog. He replied, I can do that, within 5 minutes, which made me think he had rehearsed doing that in his head, like a man preparing for the fire drill he set. He sent me the timeline at 1:13 a.m. after, I imagine, a night of pacing a hotel carpet and realizing how loud air conditioning is when you don't have anyone to pretend for. It was not heroic, it did not make him noble. It was a list of days and places and one-sentence descriptions. Coffee turned to wine. I told myself I needed to talk to her about career burnout. We went to the movies. I lied and said it was with Dan. It felt intoxicating to be a version of myself with no chores. The words intoxicating and version made me want to put my fist through a framed print of a lighthouse. Here's where I tell you an unpretty truth. Part of me was relieved. Not that he'd strayed, but that the unease I'd been fertilizing in my chest had a name. I wasn't crazy or petty or dramatic. I was a body noticing its own temperature. If you've ever realized the hum in your apartment is the fridge and then suddenly it's all you can hear, you know how loud relief can be. The days after were a choreography of awful and necessary. He moved into a short-stay rental around the corner like a dog on a timeout, and I hated how easy the key pickup was, how clean the sheets looked, like even the city colluded to make this tidy. We told our families in versions shaped like them. My mother said, "Do you want me to come over?" And I said, "Not unless you can turn time off and on like a tap." His mother cried in a way that made him promise to fix it, as if I were furniture with a wobble, and I learned another line of mine: "Don't speak about me like a table." He asked for a chance to end it properly. I gave him a script with my conditions scribbled like red pen from a strict teacher. You meet in a public place, you do not soothe her with promises about the future, you tell the truth without performing remorse in a way that makes you feel like a man again. You send me the message before you send it to her. You block her after, not as a gesture I monitor like a prison guard but as a boundary the adult version of you respects without a monitor. He did these things in the halting, over-careful way of a drunk person learning to walk again. I was not moved. I was slightly less furious. You want to know about Elise? I never met her. I learned enough to picture her walking into the oyster room with a hair clip that says effortless and a laugh he wore like a jacket. I learned she has a fringe and reads biographies and thinks lemon tart is superior to chocolate cake accurate. I learned she thanked him for opening the window on a stale room. That phrase made me want to park a bulldozer on every window we own. We started therapy like people start jogging, awkward, out of rhythm, keen to quit at the first stitch. The therapist, Esha, had soft cardigans and eyes that saw around corners. She asked me what I needed to feel safe in a room with him. I said, I can own. He gave me that by shutting up when I talked and not reaching for my knee like we were already halfway to forgiveness. Asha asked him what he wanted that he thought the affair gave him. He said, newness. Proof that I'm interesting. I didn't say the thing I thought, that newness is easy and interesting is just curiosity's first outfit. He offered to show me every password and I said yes because transparency is not romance, it's housekeeping. For a while, living felt like being a customs agent. Who are you messaging? Why did you like that post? What's at that address? We built a little bureaucracy of our love. It wasn't pretty, but I don't need pretty, I need accountable. The receipts were our starting gun and our joke. Sometimes when a bill comes in the mail now, I hold it up and say, another receipt, darling, and we both wince and then breathe because the word doesn't bite as hard. Here's the part where you want to know if we stayed together. We did for now, and not because I am a saint or because he did something grand. We stayed because when he moved back and 3 months later, he was quiet in the right way, and I felt more like myself in a room with him than without. That's not a moral, it's a report. I also made a separate bank account and a list of trusted people with spare keys, and I learned the shape of a no that doesn't need a but. I told him the showbox stays on top of the closet as a relic. We turned it into a place where we keep the small scraps of repair. Ticket stubs from the pub trivia night where we came last and didn't blame each other. A receipt for a vacuum we bought together after the old one died in a dramatic puff, which felt like the right metaphor. A grocery bill from the night we cooked pasta and ate it on the floor because the table felt too formal for a truce. Occasionally I open it and look at the old slips, the oyster martinis and lemon tarts, and I don't cry anymore. I hold one, then another, and I tell myself, look, this is what the lie weighed. Not nothing. Paper has weight. Pile enough of it and it makes a box. Put the box high enough and you'll meet it on laundry day. Once, months later, I saw a woman at the cafe with a fringe and a biography about a famous photographer and a perfume with the word noir. She ordered lemon tart. My chest did a small, ridiculous sprint. She paid in cash and forgot her scarf. I ran after her with it and said, "You left this." She smiled in a grateful, ordinary way that did not belong to my life. I walked back into the cafe and wiped a perfectly clean counter and realized I didn't want revenge, I wanted competence. I wanted my days to feel like they could carry me. I wanted to be the kind of woman who could make an immaculate flat white and also say, no more showboxes. Both things require steadiness. If you're here because you found your own box, receipts, messages, a new credit card, the breadcrumb trail of a double life, this is the piece of advice I would put under your tongue. Let yourself be boring. Ask the boring questions. Make the boring rules. Boredom is the scaffolding of trust. Grand speeches are the scaffolding of movies. We didn't need his tears in a hotel lobby or my dramatic sprint down a rain-soaked street. We needed to sit at our scarred kitchen table and say, on Tuesdays, who are you? On Fridays, where do you go? When you feel starved of praise, what do you reach for? When you are lonely, who do you tell first? Sometimes he still stares at the skyline like it might grant him a pardon. Sometimes I look at him and see the man with the towel on his face who said, it's been a while, and I want to push him into the river and then jump in after him because isn't that marriage, drowning together and calling it a swim? Other times we're ridiculous and soft. I knock over a bag of coffee beans and he spends 20 minutes chasing them like marbles, cursing in loops, and I giggle so hard I have to sit down, and we are just two mammals who share a flat and a history and a talent for making new messes. We put a note on the inside of the whole closet door where the showbox lives now. It says, we tell each other first. That's it. Not no secrets ever because people need pockets. Not you are my everything because that's a scary job description. Just tell me first. If you hate your job, tell me first. If you are bored, tell me first. If you meet someone whose laugh feels like a new room, tell me first so we can open a window without tearing down the house. He rolled his eyes when I wrote it, which I expected, but he didn't ask me to take it down. Sometimes he taps it on the way out like a superstition. I keep the receipts in a separate envelope inside the box now, labeled Old Curriculum. I tell myself I graduated from that syllabus. Next to it is a new envelope, unlabeled. We're saving for a trip, not to escape or disguise anything, just to go somewhere with excellent bread and bad museums and walk until our feet feel honest. When we buy the tickets, we'll put the receipt in there too, not as proof but as memory. Paper holds both. At work, when people ask for something fancy that I secretly judge, triple syrup, extra hot, oat coconut hybrid foam, I make it anyway and I try to do it with care. It's not my job to correct their desire, it's my job to meet it without losing myself. I think about that at home. It's not my job to make him new, it's my job to be me with integrity and his job to meet me there. If he doesn't, I know how to open the closet, take down a box and start packing. The knowledge doesn't threaten me anymore. It steadies me. And when laundry day comes around, as it always does, I climb the chair and I look up and I see the two showboxes like two endings. One where we stopped and one where we learned to start differently. I touch both. I climb down. I fold a towel into thirds the way my mother taught me and I go on with my day, which is not an epic but it is mine.